everyone, and thank you for joining us for a very special dialogue with a wonderful lady whose books have taken us into trips all around the world and into the depths of our souls. And now we have the privilege to be here with her and to get a glimpse of her mind and of her soul and the way she crafted these wonderful stories, such as When Stars Go Dark, The Paris Wife, and so many others. So Paula McLain, we are so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. What a pleasure.
And I have to say, I have to confess something that probably you get all the time, that I could not put down your latest book, When Stars Go Dark. I know when I opened, when I started browsing it, and by the time I was done with it, it was dark outside, and I was looking at the clock and could not imagine how much time had elapsed.
Oh, thank you. That's so flattering. It's also exactly what I'm always hoping for when I open a book, that it will be that kind of book that'll pull me in and make me not care about time.
I think good books do that. And I think this is why your books are so loved by people all around the world, including Romania, because you really make us part of the story. And I really like something that I heard you say in a different interview that you gave in the US, that the idea of the book came to you like a rainstorm, that you were walking your dog and it just came.
Who you just met briefly.
Yes. Before we went into the live broadcast. And I was wondering, because this book has so much of you as well. You said, you once said that it has a bit of a memoir feeling, even more than your actual memoir.
Yeah, it's very personal.
And I was wondering, do you, when you find the ideas for your books and when you tune into that inspiration that takes you into the story, how much does your intuition have to do with this? Because you seem to be a very intuitive person that listens to the inner hunch that is. We all have signals and signs and coincidences, but you seem to be very tuned into yours. And this is precisely why I wanted to start out with this particular question.
Oh, thank you. It's actually my favorite kind of conversation to have too, about the mystery of the imagination and whatever that stirring is that points us toward, I think it just points us toward our interest, our curiosity, our fascination. And I try to stay awake. When I get those signals, when I hear those voices, when I feel myself pulled toward a certain subject matter, I try to pay attention, because I believe that my subconscious is an interesting place, and that perhaps it's wiser than I am and knows things that I don't know. And so I try to surrender. I feel like our rational minds they try to keep order. But a novel is not that. Like what you said earlier, it really is about readers want to go on an emotional experience, and I want to take an emotional experience. And in order to do that, it's more like climbing onto a magic carpet ride or something. I don't build it. I just say yes, and I try to climb on. So this idea, though, was so wildly different from any idea I'd ever had before that I was scared. I mean, I like to think that I'm a pretty stout-hearted, brave person, but I thought, do I have the street cred? Do I have the clout? Do I have the skills to tackle a new genre? I didn't even read in suspense, but the story pulled me in, and I thought, well, if I trust the story and I trust the character as she's coming to me, then maybe it will be okay. And of course, it was okay. Yeah, I love this character. I think she's absolutely amazing, and she feels like a real person to me, although that sounds silly to say, but it's true.
I think she is a real person, because she can convey so much emotion that she becomes real. It's just the fact that she lives in the pages of a book doesn't make it less real.
I love that. I love that point of view. And of course, we're talking to readers, so they believe this as well. Right.
I think I liked very much the motto of the book, the Friedrich Buechner motto, that this is the world, wonderful things and terrible things happen, don't be afraid. And I think it's very appropriate for the theme of the book, but also for me, at least, it seemed like your take on the world, maybe the way you view the world with the light and the shadow at the same time, because your life was both. So far, you experienced both wonderful things, but also very tough things that made you resilient and strong.
Yeah, that's very poetic way to say it. And I think that's absolutely true. My worldview, I suppose, that we can't choose what happens to us. We try to make sense of what happens to us. And if we can accept our fate, the light and the dark, I think that's part of Anna's story. So she's this missing persons detective who has seen too much of the darker side of human nature, and yet her gifts serve others. If she can bear the pain and her attunement to others' suffering, I think that's it. Like her gifts. Have you ever thought about that? How our gifts and our challenges come linked. It's almost like they're married. Like you can't take one without the other, like the light and the dark that happens in our lives, right? It would be great if we could choose, but I heard a line recently, and it was in a pop song, so I can't tell you who wrote it, but the line was, "Our shadows make us whole."
Wow,
and I
so
thought,
beautiful.
so beautiful. I mean, that's what I'd like to believe, right? The darker elements that happen to us, yes, they cause us pain and suffering, but they make us whole people if we, yeah.
You once said that your favorite character trait is resilience.
That's true. Yeah.
I like that very much. And I have to say, this was the conclusion, before hearing you say that, that was the conclusion that I drew from your memoir, which I enjoyed very much.
Thank you.
And it was very emotional. That was a really emotional journey. And I was wondering, you always said that you have a feminist side because your characters are always strong women.
Yes.
And I was wondering, does this feminist side also have to do with the fact that you and your sisters had to be strong from very early on? You had to fend for yourselves. So it takes a strong one to know a strong one. So you're trying.
Well, that's very wise. Yes. I think what it is to me, just like creativity, resilience is a mystery. Like we know it when we see it, but we don't know where it comes from. Like, why are some people more able to weather the storms of life than some people? You know them, right? You love them, but they fall apart at stoplights. Some people, right? And yes, I think the way that my experience, it's positive and negative, forced me to be stronger than I would have liked to have been as a child. Also created a fierce will to live and to rise, like whatever that is, that transformative power. It's like I learned from books that the world could be a richer, wilder, more beautiful place. And I wanted that. And so I just was determined to have it. And so, yes, when I see resilience in other people, I think it's beautiful. But I always wonder what it was that created, when you said I like resilience. So for instance, my novel about Beryl Markham, Circling the Sun, right? One of my attachments to that character, just like my attachment to Anna, is that they're created in the forge of life, right? Everything, the battle scars, the woundedness, the strength, it's all rolled up into one. I mean, I suppose I'm just repeating myself. This is clearly my theme. I think I'm always writing about resilience and how we survive what seem to be unsurvivable things. And that's how we become ourselves.
That's so beautifully put. And it's very true. And circling back to Anna, one thing that I liked very much, and I thought it made the story even even more nuanced, was the fact that you blend in real women who were lost and real life stories with the story of the main character, which is also very emotional. So it brought another very sensitive side to the story. How did you feel about this mix in terms of the people's reactions? How did the readers react to this blending of fiction and nonfiction in such an emotional story?
Yeah, so as you know, in my historical novels, I'm always surfing that line between fact and fiction, right? I'm writing about real people, and yet I'm writing about their interior lives, which no one can possibly know. And that's my sweet spot. I mean, I honestly think that some part of that puzzle activates my imagination, but I'd never been drawn to such a sensitive part of history. True crime, as you know, people are fascinated by it, by real life murders and abductions, the dark pull of that, the fascination. I wanted to be very careful with that because these are real lives. These things happen to families who are still missing their children, still feeling whole communities. I was very intrigued by the idea that sometimes a whole community, an entire village, for instance, can experience a trauma collectively, and that they need to heal collectively over time. So all of that nuance, the responsibility that I felt for handling those stories with the utmost care and sensitivity. And the response has been really powerful and interesting. I've been contacted by people who lived in the town of Petaluma, who were there when Paula McLain, for instance, who is a historical child victim when she disappeared when she was 12 years old. And I also got a lovely note from the FBI detective, the actual FBI detective who was the lead detective on that case, who read the book, and he sent me, I wish I had it instead of this mug. I wish I had it. He sent me an official FBI coffee cup, from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And when it came in a box, I opened it and my daughter said, "Wow, Mom, cool things happen to you all the time, but that's like top 10. Like that's that's top 10. So yes, when you're writing about real life all the time, I think it helps to treat history and fact with love and to not have an agenda. So if I feel like if my heart is in the right place, then all will go smoothly, right?
Definitely. And I think the best proof that of how gracefully you treated this this very sensitive topic is actually the fact that FBI official felt the need to reach out to you and send this symbol of the fact that he or she read the book and felt a connection to the book. I think that's really amazing because...
Thank you. No, it felt really good. It's almost like when you throw a pebble into a pond and the ripples go out. Every once in a while, I become aware of the ripples that can be activated by just doing a small thing like writing a book, right? And reaching people in other countries such as yourself. I mean, it is remarkable the ways that we can be connected as humans.
Yes, and the fact that a simple phrase in a book can really maybe awaken something in a person and make them realize something that was there, but they were not aware of it. And I also liked very much a line. I have so many screenshot. I read the book both. I have it both a hard copy and a digital for my books.
Okay.
And I like to make screenshots of phrases that I liked, and I liked so much that paragraph about how we all come into the world with a very pure, bright light, and what happens to that afterwards. And I think this is the magic of books, because they make us connect with both that bright light inside us, but also with the dark side. It goes both ways. And I was wondering, because it's so, just like you said, you did books that were so different from one another. So historical, suspense and emotional. What's the next one? If you haven't, no spoilers, but just
no
what you would
spoilers.
like to. Will it be also a different one, or will you be revisiting maybe the same genre as before?
So I have ideas all the time, and this world of Anna and Will and Mendocino and these characters happen, even these characters that I feel very committed to. I almost feel like they're still alive, like they're still moving and they're still on a journey. The book has sold as a limited or extended TV series. And it would be really great to see it developed that way. I would love to see these characters moving through space and time. But currently the idea that has, and I haven't talked about it, you're like the first person I'm telling, the idea that's kind of captured my imagination currently is actually a love story. And I didn't know that was coming. And again, obviously it's going to be about a strong woman because that's my MO. But that's the story that I'm currently in now. And it's always just a revelation to me, again, like how ideas come, why they come, how they take us over. I was talking to a fellow writer the other day about the experience of reading is we go into a trance, right? I mean, if it's done well, then we're on a journey. And if it's done well, as on the writing side, then I do the same. Like I go into a trance and I imagine that world. And if I can do it with integrity and heart and, some part of my soul, as you say, I love how romantic you are. I too clearly am romantic. Then you're invited along on the journey as well. And we all go to this place together. And story can be a very powerful, connective tool, particularly in a time where we're feeling so isolated and so disconnected.
Was because you mentioned healing as a very important role that stories have sometimes. In this complicated time, how did books, both books that you read and wrote, helped you navigate maybe this period easier, like made it lighter for you?
Absolutely, particularly when reading, the experience of reading, as you can see just behind you have all the books. Like my books they're like people, like everything I know about the world I learned in a book. I think, what would we do if we didn't have them? But in terms of telling this particular story, the act of catharsis, which to me is about expressing, right? To express something and to relieve some pressure or some sense of pain by expressing it. But to me, it's more complicated. It's if I can express it and someone else a reader recognizes some piece of their story and feels even for a moment that they're not alone, that on this human journey, we're all connected, then to me, that's a ripple effect catharsis, that somebody else feels a sense of relief or healing or an invitation to look at themselves and the facts of their lives in a different way. So I don't really write for me. I write for this wider net in the way that trees talk to each other underground, right? Through the root system. This is what I feel that we're doing as humans on the planet, is trying to connect and share our resources, right? Share our resources.
Speaking of the trees that talk together, I just had like this idea right now. Among the perks of being a best-selling writer, do you have sometimes when you read a book and you really like it, do you write to the person that wrote it? Because probably it's easier for you to reach them. I don't really happen to send an email like, I love that.
I do. I have done that. Sort of write a love note, write a fan letter. Absolutely. Or sometimes when I meet a person in the world, like I'll be doing a literary event and then I just feel like a child, sort of wanting their wanting their attention and wanting to say hello. But I'm just as touched when somebody reaches me, right? And when somebody writes me and says they've read a book and that it's mattered to them, and then they say, this is the first time I've ever written an author. Like, to me, that's the most flattering. As you know, we don't have time. None of us have time. We're overscheduled. Our lives are too busy. And that someone would actually take the time to write me a letter is, it's just such a gift. I'm always so flattered, and I always write back. So if anybody wants to write to me, I always write back.
I think it's a flow, because you get the emotion from the love letter, and you need to, put it back into the universe by answering. Yeah. It's like a flow that has to keep going.
Yeah, sometimes the letters are intense. People share experiences with me that are intimate and sensitive and require a thoughtful response. But I believe that's because I give too. My books are not, they're not cold, right? I invite emotion. I suppose that's true. And maybe it is the extreme experience of my childhood, dealing with abandonment and abuse and these difficult things that have opened me, like the character of Anna. Anna's experience is the thing that makes her susceptible to the feelings of others. So I think that's what's happened to me. I think it's grown my empathy, and my empathy grows my imagination. And I didn't know as a child that I was building a writer, but I'm really delighted that has been the case. It's my favorite thing. I love my work. I feel very lucky to do it, and to be able to talk to wonderful readers like you who approach the work with such care and sensitivity. So
thank you.
It
is a privilege. And you mentioned a word that I personally love, empathy. And I think it's a wonderful gift, but also the world today can be very tough for empathic people. Do you feel the need to protect yourself sometimes? Because you mentioned that you get so much emotional response, which is wonderful, but it can also get to you at some point and make you very sensitive.
Absolutely.
And more.
It's almost like empathy overload.
Yes,
that we're always, aren't we always, and particularly as women, I think, because we take on, I think, too much.
Yes.
And a lot of women are caretakers. I certainly am. And I take care of strangers and other people's children. And that's just my energy, the overflow of energy. But I was listening to an interview. Do you know the psychologist Brené Brown? Do you ever
yes,
read
I love her, yes.
Oh, she's so incredible. That she was talking to a Buddhist teacher about the idea of that flow, like what it takes to, if you give a lot of energy, that you have to restore that energy. You have to recharge your battery. And she was talking about it in terms of one breath. Like, in order to exhale the way we do in our lives and in our work and in our relationships, then we have to have time to inhale as well. And I think we have to be really smart about what we need in order to do that, to really take in a full breath and to recharge our battery and to know when we're depleted, and then to stop everything we're doing to take care of ourselves. Again, particularly when we're so overwhelmed by anxiety and the news and the state of our world, and then, to refill, because you can't give what you don't have to give.
True.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a lesson that we learned later on in life. And usually after we get depleted and we don't know how to overrun. Burnout,
and then we're just lying a heap on the floor, and we're not any good to anybody. Right.
But it's a tough lesson to learn, but a very important one. Yeah. And because I think our time is almost up, I would like to, I would sit and chat with you for hours and hours.
No, you're actually really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual. And I have to say, from a personal side, and also I think most of the people who are listening, who will be listening to us, will agree. One thing that I really liked about your work and about you as a person is the fact that I can tell that you are an animal lover. And this, I think people who love animals, who are tender to animals, both in their work and in real life, are special people with a special kind of tenderness. So I have to reach out and put this out there.
Oh, thank you. Did you like the character of Cricket, the dog, in the novel?
I was so touched, and I would say it was one of my favorite. There were some of my favorite bits from the book.
Yeah, I really believe that animals can, yes, that they can heal us, and that they come into our lives for a reason. They make us warmer, kinder, more loving people. And yes, that dog was a way for me to write a love letter to my own dog, who is here actually in my library. Sleeping.
I think we should, for the the final goodbye scene, I think we should show Piper to the world.
Do you think
because
so?
I've seen her, but I think the people who are listening to us.
Wait, no one will judge me for the state of my office? Are you sure?
Absolutely nobody. We will enjoy seeing her.
Okay. Can you see her?
Yes.
So there she is. And that's all my mess and my books and my yoga mat and my crazy.
It's your writer's den, and it's supposed to be like that. It's an organized environment. It has to be right for you, not for anybody else.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that permission. And now everybody knows who my great love is over there.
I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for listening to us. And I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation. And I look forward to reading your next one and your next one and your next one. And talking about new characters and new emotional journeys. And it was really a privilege. Thank you so much for this afternoon.
Right. Such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.